When you play the Game of Thrones,
Subscribe and like.
you die. There is no middle ground.
We got called out a little bit. We were doing some of the more, I feel like, outlandish theories. So
Yeah.
I'm going to get right to the meat of it. Everybody knows that I'm a pretty
Oh,
big
no.
Ned and Ashara hater.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big one, okay? I don't like the theory. I don't like the logic behind the theory. Now, okay, I want a preference. I don't think this theory is bad in terms of, like, compared to some of these other theories. Like, this theory actually has evidence that you can use to try and justify your claims and things like that. I just don't like. I hate the theory mixed with, I think there's some leaps in logic. But Ned and Ashara, the main idea that we have from this theory, that again, there's variations to this theory. I've covered this theory in the past, and some people that believe in Ned and Ashara don't agree on certain points. I think Order of the Green Hand is like the major proponent of where I believe this theory got popular. If I'm not mistaken, Ricky, you're more into Song by Fire YouTube than I was at the beginning. So I don't know if that is completely correct, but from what I know, most people that follow Ned and Ashara, it's usually through Order of the Green Hands theory, which is Ned and Ashara, they meet at Harrenhal. We have this kind of mention that it seems like Ned and Ashara danced, introduced by Brandon. This was kind of the start maybe of their love stuff going on. I don't remember exactly if there was interaction that was happening with Ned and Ashara after this point or it was before this point. I'm pretty sure it was after. And then they kind of started like talking to each other more or less. And eventually Ned is kind of thinking about proposing Ashara to marry her to his father when his father's coming south for Brandon's marriage. That goes all awry because of all the things occurring. And this is then where the theory very much veers off of the known history that we have. Ned and Ashara then travel to the north, going through kind of the Vale, ending up in White Harbor. Order of the Green Hands theory, I've seen this part of it be different compared to who's giving the theory. But then at White Harbor, Ned and Ashara get married. Ned calls the banners coming to White Harbor, not going back to Winterfell, or maybe going back again. It's not very clear from theory to theory. And they go south. At this point, Ashara, I guess, goes back to Starfall through a boat or something. Then we get skipped to basically the end, the Tower of Joy stuff. And Ashara, either kills herself because of Ned taking Jon, their child, and leaving her behind because he has to marry Catelyn, or her going into hiding. Again, varies from theory to theory. And that's more or less the idea. The idea is that Ned and Ashara were married. They had Jon. Jon is the legitimate heir, not, Catelyn and Ned's kids. And that's kind of where we stand. The evidence people then maybe cite would be that Jon is Azor Ahai, that he will have Dawn.
Sword of the Morning.
Yeah, Sword of the Morning. He doesn't have like dragon dreams and stuff like that. He's more viewed as a Stark than the other kids are. Ned calling him a son in Bran 1. The way that this Ashara rumor travels to Winterfell, and Ned instantly silences it from Catelyn. And then at that point, other characters bring up Ashara being the mother for Jon, like Cersei, for instance. Cersei throws that into his face during their meeting. And then, yeah, that's kind of where the theory goes. Like, there's some miscellaneous evidence for the character. Now, with that being said, Ashara is only named in the book series about 5 or 6 times. So take that as you will. There's information there, but you kind of have to interpret it in a certain way. But yeah, Ricky, I'll let you talk then on what you kind of think about.
Okay, I think this is a very, very good theory. But in the context of 2025, it's just wrong. I think, back in the day, and nowadays we take R+L = J for granted, but for a long time it wasn't. And so what happened back in the day was that, they were looking for alternatives to that theory. It was kind of like the first like actual gigantic theory that people on forums had and stuff like that. But in the context of everything that happened, even the show, because David and Dan had to answer that question from George in order to get the green light to make Game of Thrones. And they made R+L = J be the outcome. I don't want to base this off of the show, but in this case, R+L = J is an incredible theory. It is. It's just that the kind of theories that we're used to now, and what people come up with, and the stuff that people know about the books is now just so incredibly different, and it's all you have to take it in context to the time in which this theory was created. In 2025, it's a bad theory or not a bad one, but I think it's definitely wrong. And it's annoying how kind of like almost contrarian this is. Like, it is R+L = J, but everyone or people who believe this will still shout at you for not getting it. It's Ashara. But it's a good theory for like 2014, 2013.
But yeah, I do want a preference, by the way, because I know you'll probably get comments on this live stream every time I talk about Ned and Ashara. There's always people that want to discuss it because people are very passionate about the theory.
Yeah.
I did not run through the whole theory. If I was going to run through the whole theory, I would have been yapping for 20 minutes straight. But yeah,
and people will yell at me for
Yes.
taking the show as like evidence that it's not. Even without the show, there's so many hints towards R+L = J in the books, and those hints, they're at first glance, when you were just introduced to the series as a whole, and you're like, for your first read through, you might not get it. It's not as much on the nose as it is today, like, because everyone made videos about it, everyone made articles about it, and then Game of Thrones went out and actually confirmed it for their show canon. But back in the day, this was like a huge revelation. Like, oh my god, yeah, I think it is R+L = J. I think that's actually true. And just because it's so obvious now, you don't have to be contrarian and still hold on to a very outlandish theory. Ned was very much interested in Ashara, as was Barristan Selmy, so it makes for an interesting love triangle. It's an interesting story, but it's just two young men in love with a very beautiful woman.
I agree. I mean, I'll kind of add to you just about the, using Game of Thrones for evidence. I think that's very legit evidence. I know people.
In this case, it is. I think. In this
but,
case,
I mean, Ricky, put it this way: not only did George say, okay, he specifically asked who John's parents were, and they, answered whatever they answered, and that's why they were allowed to do the show. He then says after season 8, like after the show ended, his very first, I think it was his first blog post, he's talking about how we got here, and he specifically says, yeah, they answered the question correctly. And then George, who was very involved in season 1 of the show, where we get most of our Ashara evidence into why Ned and Ashara is a thing, is from book 1. Like, most of her references are from book 1. And for her not even to be a character, like never named, she's never named in the show. I think it's legit evidence that you have to consider. It's different than like us talking about things that happen in the show that don't happen in the book, or cold hands theory. It's much different than that, I think. Again, I think there's a lot to talk about, and I would highly recommend, if you want to hear, my full thoughts on it. I've made multiple videos on this topic. I don't want to bog down the live stream because we do have more we want to talk about.
it's a good, like, I also want to before we end this topic, I want to say that it is a very interesting theory. It's a good one, even with a lot of enthusiasts out there. But I just personally don't think it's the case, and I think it's very obviously R+L = J.
I think it's a well put together theory, but it's a theory that I like very much disagree with, hence why I put it on here. It's on this live stream for different reasons than a lot of the other ones have been. It's kind of the way I think for instance, like we were talking about the other ones, like Tywin is a dusky woman. I'm just shaking my head the whole time because it doesn't make any sense. like Ned and Ashara is a coherent theory that you
Mm.
can understand why it forms and where it comes from. It's just a disagreement on the actual theory. The one I wanted to bring on here is I personally am not a huge fan of Tyrion being a Targaryen.
Oh, that was my
That was
next
the
one.
next one. Oh, well, we have to know. We can both talk on this one.
Oh
So,
yeah.
I just don't like it for the implications. Now, in theory, I think it could work, right? Because we do get this idea of Eris being kind of handsy with Tywin's wife, and there did seem to be some sort of attraction or lust there, and we know that Eris was, doing some things with his wife's handmaidens and ladies in waiting and things like that. So it would in line with some of the information that we've been told. There is the possibility that could have happened. The timeline kind of works out. I just think that the thing that brings this theory down so much, if you want to go further, Targaryens have quite bad genes because of incest and things like that. So it would add to why Tyrion has mismatched eyes and, all of his other issues that he has physically that would maybe come from, Targaryen genetics. But I think that just in terms of what it does for the story, the dynamic change it would create for the characters of Tyrion and Tywin, I think really, to me, I just don't like. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it's a lot of people trying to fulfill that Tyrion is going to be, one of the three heads of the dragon,
Yeah.
and I just don't think it works narratively. I actually think it really would hurt the characters of both Tyrion and Tywin if it was the case. But Ricky, you want to add your thoughts to that?
I would definitely agree, and I think it's more of a sweet dream than it is an actual theory. Like the people who actually believe this want it to be true. They want Tyrion to hop on a dragon, be one of the three heads of the dragon, and yeah, I think one dragon will die quite soon. At least in the winter, I think one dragon will die. So the question of who are the three heads of the dragon is going to be put to rest too. So. Yeah, it's a sweet dream. I think, and Matthews just said that too. Twins being Targaryens would be more compelling. It is also not true, I think, but it would make for a more compelling story if Jaime and Cersei would have been the Targs.
I agree. The golden kids, right, ended up being not even Tywin's, and the one that he does have is the one he hates the most.
Yeah.
Because it is someone that's like him, has a lot of the same faults as Tywin.
Hmm.
I do think, like, if one of them was going to be true, I think that Jaime and Cersei would make more sense, albeit I don't think that's the case.
In general, the secret Targaryen stuff, it's at least partially going to be a thing with Jon. And even then you have that whole thing of, he can't really annul a marriage just like that, royal marriage. So the book still needs to answer those questions, even if the show didn't do it, and even if R+L equals J, it's a question of how much will it matter, because it would still be
Agreed.
a bastard.
Well, we have something like the show did, where it's like, oh, Rhaegar and Lyanna, married.
Annul the marriage.
Yeah.
Annul the marriage. Well, he was married, and
That's true. Yeah. Well, you can go with the idea that Rhaegar could take multiple wives because he's
the
Targaryen
route, right? He's a true Targaryen, like Valyrian law and whatever. But I don't see it.
If you'd like to see more of me and Ricky's discussion, check out his stream over on the Voice of Old Town's channel. Also, we will have a live show every single month, so check that out over there. Also, these will be on Spotify as well. So I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye, guys.